Sonic goes fast. I feel like that's a pretty non-controversial thing to say, but the problem with the video game character's entire gimmick being speed is that it doesn't allow the series to really do anything drastically different, and if they do decide to change things up, it usually has to be in a separate mode from the normal speedy gameplay. Sonic Team has made other styles of gameplay in their games that differ from the main Sonic levels, but usually they are separated as their own thing. But what if there was a Sonic game that really had nothing to do with speed and tried to be something completely new?
Check this out. A secret room.
You know a game will be good when the trailer has Skrillex. So Sonic Boom was developed by Big Red Button, a company made up of ex-employees from studios like Naughty Dog, with some of the people who worked on Sonic Boom having worked on some other small titles like Uncharted. But what Big Red Button did not account for was that they now have to work with Sega and Sonic Team, a fate worse than death. So the initial idea for Sonic Boom was to have the game released on modern platforms like the PS4 or Xbox One. Then Nintendo got involved. So during this time, Sega had a deal with Nintendo to release 3 Sonic games on the Wii U, the first 2 being Sonic Lost World and Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games. So Sega then decided that it would be a great idea to make this new Sonic game they are already working on a part of their Nintendo deal. But the problem was that this game was not made for the Wii U, which was much weaker than the modern consoles at the time, and the game was having a lot of trouble running on the console. But about a year after they started porting the game to Wii U, it was released. So the question is, how bad is it? The game starts off with the team chasing down Eggman in one of the game's many speed sections, and we will get to those later. But before we get into the story or gameplay, I need to introduce you all to the main members of Team Sonic in this game. We have Sonic, who is the cocky one with an ego, even though he really never does anything that egotistical, but the game just really wants you to think that he did. We have Tails, who is the nerdy one, who is constantly talking about his gadgets and gizmos and accords things to his calculations. There's Knuckles. He's stupid. And then finally we have Amy. She's the girl. So then some stuff happens, like Eggman attacks the group, Metal Sonic is there, Sonic tries to open a door, and everyone is very opposed to that for some reason. But eventually, after being overwhelmed, Sonic opens the door, and after one really boring platforming/puzzle section, Sonic accidentally releases the main villain of the game. From this point on, your goal is to collect the Chaos Emerald, the Chaos Crystals. Somehow the Sonic series has found a way to copy its own work. From this point on, you are just going from location to location and collecting crystals, and honestly not much happens. Eventually, we go back in time to imprison Lyric so we can then release him at the beginning of the game, but if we can go back in time to make that happen, why not travel back to the beginning of the game to stop past Sonic from releasing Lyric in the first place? Also, we fight Shadow for some reason. I don't even really know why he is in this game, he just shows up, fights you, and then leaves. Then he comes back at the end of the game and once again doesn't do anything. I also find it very funny that at the end of this game they try to tease like a sequel or something because Sega is so delusional that they thought this game would be a huge success and people would actually want a sequel. But on to the main attraction of this game, we have the gameplay, and oh boy is it something. So this game is what I would call a Skylanders-like. It has a pretty big emphasis on co-op, despite that feature not really working very well, and the game has some of the most bare-bones combat you can imagine. Now, the combat being pretty mild would be fine if the other aspects of the game, like the puzzles or platforming, were fun, but in all honesty, the other aspects of the game are either just as bad or worse. The puzzles are extremely easy and are just more time-consuming than anything, like this puzzle where you have to step on the glowing panels on the floor. You would think the puzzle would reset or something when you hit the wrong panel, but no. You could just run around the area and occasionally hit the right one, and the game has no problem with this. Also, the game tells you exactly which one to step on next, so there is no thinking or planning involved at all. It's not a puzzle, it's just following orders. And then there is the platforming, and oh my gosh, it is terrible. Every time I enter one of these 2D sections, it feels exactly the same as the last one, with the same annoying level elements every time. And look, I know, you know, everyone knows that this game is an absolute mess of bugs and performance issues, which only worsens the platforming sections as the game is incredibly inconsistent with frame rate and clipping through things. I even played on the most recent patch I could to try and get rid of some of the bugs, like the ones that let you skip 80% of the game, but that ended up making my experience worse somehow because all of the funny glitches were gone, and all that was left were the annoying ones. So far, all of this stuff has been pretty awful, and also nothing like like anything else in the Sonic series. So to remedy this, they decided to add some speed sections into the game to make it feel more Sonic-like. Oh no. This game has a lot of trouble loading things in. I mean, the moment you enter the village through this corridor, the game drops to probably close to like a frame per hour. So when you ask the game to load a bunch of things at a very fast speed, yeah, it doesn't go over very well. I mean, the moment you enter one of these sections, the game struggles so much and it's really not even worth it. It's not like the game turns into a normal Sonic level during these parts. No, it just becomes a stupid mobile auto runner game. And then on top of all of this, the boring gameplay, the awful performance, what is arguably even worse than all of that, the characters will not shut up. No matter what you are doing, at least one of the characters will have something to say about it. Whether it be a joke that barely connects to what is going on at all, some incredibly obvious statement about what you are supposed to do, or the characters just saying things for no reason at all. This all just combines to make one of the most odd experiences I have ever had. Did I have any fun while playing this game? No. Did I really have any strong feelings about the game while playing it? No. I genuinely felt nothing but just pure boredom while playing through this game. At times, I felt like I was going to fall asleep while playing. The entire experience just feels like you are going through the motions and doing the same things over and over again. I played Sonic Boom all the way through from beginning to end, yet I don't feel like I even owned the game, let alone beat it. Ultimately, I don't think it was the developers or anyone who had to actually work on the game who are at fault for what this game became. It was pure greed by Sega, who was too blind to see what they were doing to the game and its developers. Instead of just releasing it on the platforms it was intended to be released on, Sega saw an opportunity to fill an agreement made without this game in mind at all, just so they didn't have to spend time on making another game actually made for the platform it was on. They forced the developers to port it onto hardware that couldn't handle it with a very limited amount of time. Then they tried to turn it into a multimedia franchise with a TV show and plenty of toys. But when the product that it's all based on is one of the worst games ever made, then none of it's going to work. I think that this game is a good lesson on where greed and poor planning can get you. It turned a game from an iconic series made by a very promising developer into one of the worst games ever made. On top of that, it was just another blow to the Sonic series, with most people just seeing it as a joke. So yeah, if you couldn't tell, I'm not a big fan of the game.